when I was at school in North London, all I had ever wanted to do was work in television. And my careers advisor, probably actually quite rightly, so I don't really blame her for it, she said, Janet, look, you're going to have to face it. You're not smart enough. They only take Oxford or Cambridge. So if you want to get into the BBC, back in the day, as a producer, Oxford or Cambridge, that was essentially it. So should you be much better suited to go and be a teacher? So I went, all right. So off I went. Wrong with teachers. I loved it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I did 4 years of that, got a really good teaching degree, and then just felt all I've really done is go to school and then go to university. And before I go back to school, I had a job all lined up to begin my teaching career. I should go and see the world. So put on the backpack, headed over to Australia, did the whole, tour around, cleaned windows, all of that kind of stuff, earned a bit of money wherever I could. Ended up back in Sydney with a few weeks until I was heading back through Southeast Asia and back to England. And there was a little ad in the job centre, as they were called back then, education department of a television network looking for some filing help. Oh, okay. And I thought, well, I'm a teacher. Yeah. I actually did my whole dissertation and everything on educational television. Okay. And I thought, right, this is my chance. I'm going to go in there and knock on their door. Yeah, it was like a 4-week contract, and I'm still there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, yeah, so how long ago did you start? You started roughly around 1988, is that correct?
Yeah, so I first joined the ABC in August 1988. So it'll be 30 years next year.
Yeah, and in that time, you've had a number of roles, usually around the producing role, though. So, in 2004, you ended up becoming senior producer, and then 2008, series producer, and then 2013, executive producer, and a significant part of that was because of Good Game. Yeah,
so, I mean, I was obviously there from the very beginning of Good Game. So while I was making this news and current affairs show for ABC2 that I was the series producer of, I was asked if I had any other ideas. So sort of running alongside this great passion of mine for television and radio and broadcasting in general has been my deep and abiding love affair of video games. And so they asked me, have I got any other ideas, for any other shows? So of course, all this time, I had been much like probably the rest of Australians at the time, mainstream media pretty much ignored us gamers. The dedicated press was fantastic, but mainstream media, it was either sort of sensational, Columbine shooting-y kind of stories, or, the new PlayStation's come out and, oh, shock horror, there's a queue of people wanting one. That's right. Whereas us as gamers, I could feel it. There was this amazing community. And for me, video games are an art form, and some of the smartest and brainiest people alive today, the most creative people, work in video games, and they're visual. Like, to be a television show, this is a marriage made in heaven. And so I went to the ABC and I said, they had a music program at the time, they had a movie review show. I said, video games, we should have a video game show. Absolutely. And, yes, we want to have a bit of reviews, but being, especially coming through all of my news and current affairs stuff, I always wanted to have some analysis of what it meant to be a gamer. What was the history of games? What's the business of games? What are the big movements that are going to come through gaming? And so, to give it that kind of, I guess, sort of ABC edge in a way. And they went, yeah, all right, here's a couple of bucks, go and make us a pilot.
Oh, fair enough. So
we did.
Yeah, it's great because video games is frankly a combination of all the arts, isn't it? I mean, you got music, you got visual, you got I had a whole bunch of others. You got film and all those kinds of things as well. I mean, there's all sorts of different things.
Narrative, character development, educational. And then on top of that, which is what I think, there's the big thing that separates video games, I think, from the other media, with possible exception of music, is the interactivity. The fact that you have agency as a player. You are the one, driving your character, shooting that gun, scoring that goal, playing with that team, plotting your strategy, chatting. Even if, World of Warcraft spent the whole time, a lot of the time, sitting on a roof chatting with my friends. Great, that's still playing, right? So I think there's that. And the other great, fascinating thing for me, anyway, is technology. And the great advances that have come in technology and how video games and the creators of video games are absolutely at the cutting edge of that. And so, you know, you can see, if you look at the history of video games and the sort of history of, you know, technology and larger memory sizes and faster processing and all of that, you can see how that has directly impacted on the creativity.
They complement each other.
They do, but there are other mediums that do that. You can argue that for movies, and you can certainly argue that for music. But I think video games are like the perfect example of it. And you know, the 10 years that we were making good games, just when you think of the advances that we saw in that time, you know, and it was just brilliant to be able to talk about it on national television.
Yeah, absolutely.